Hello, my name is Ryan Beam, and I'm a student at the University of Kentucky studying economics and data science. In this series, I just try to explore how data is applied in real-world settings and how the field is continuing to evolve across industries and roles. Today, I'm joined by Kendall Ruber, a lead data scientist at Starbucks. Kendall, thank you so much for meeting with me.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No problem. Really excited for our conversation today. So my first question, just kind of wanted to get into a little bit about your career path and your education. So I know you studied economics and then got a master's in business analytics and then built a career in data science. So I was just curious, how did some of these transitions happen? What were maybe some of the big pivotal moments through your career path?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, I've always been more of a statistics person. And so I actually thought about changing my major to stats after I took my first business stats course in undergrad. But at the time, my university, they didn't really have like a dedicated stats program. So from there, I stuck with econ. But I would say one of the defining moments in my career also came like during my undergraduate internship. Like I worked in an HR department. And a lot of times we would have like HRBPs or recruiters would reach out to us with some data questions. And until then, like I really had no idea that someone could do data just as like a full-time career. And so that was kind of the moment like, hey, like I enjoy this stuff. This is kind of cool. Like I want to make a career out of this myself. But the way I would say that I got into data science specifically as my goal is kind of like being in the same HR internship. One thing that like we would also do is just work with recruiters and do some analysis around like job titling and compensation. And we were looking to hire someone that was kind of a new data person to the company, but we didn't know like what to call the role. And so my boss at the time, like she had sent over some job descriptions and she'd asked me like, oh, can you kind of look across like data scientist, data engineer, maybe some business intelligence roles and find out like what exactly we should call this person and what job is going to attract like the right candidate. And so when I was looking through those job descriptions, I was like, okay, like I kind of like this stuff and this is something that I could see myself doing. So from there, like that's kind of how I discovered really like what a data scientist was and what the skills were for that role and ultimately like what I wanted to do to make a path to get there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I kind of relate to your whole thing about favoring statistics a little bit, but there not being a dedicated major because it was just this past year that UK added the stats slash data science major. So I was really excited,
Okay.
or otherwise I would have been in a similar boat as you, just looking at the econ path. But
Yeah. Well, so I went to University of Louisville, and at the time, I don't know, it could have changed now. They only had a math degree, but you could kind of specialize in stats
okay.
if you wanted. So yeah, that was the thing where I was like, I don't know that I want to do like pure math route. But yeah, just decided to stay with econ, but then maybe take those more stats focused courses like as they were offered.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I was in the same boat. I was like, math, we'll see, we'll see. But just kind of going off that, I know that you worked at LG&E and you've there and in your previous roles and roles after that, you worked across a variety of domains within data and within data science, people analytics, cybersecurity, now customer insights. And now I know that you've moved into a lot of fraud detection and fraud prevention. So I was just curious, what drew you to fraud detection specifically?
Yeah, I would say that fraud caught my interest because I feel like it's one of the most real and interesting and just ever evolving areas to apply AI to in our world
Mhm.
today. I knew that, I definitely wanted to do something good with AI and something that's like relevant and helps like actual people. And just really, no one likes having money stolen from them or their information stolen from them. So fraud definitely seemed like a good area to get into. And I would say like another kind of big thing, just aside from having kind of that real world impact that I was looking for, is just over the course of the last few years, like if you see some of those like I don't know what to call them, like job listing sites or even things like US News, like those sorts of sources, like looking for the careers of the future. Like it's pretty common to see AI and cybersecurity listed side by side as, the hot skills to have for the future. And so for me, I felt like fraud was another way where I could have a career that's a little bit of a crossover of both. But yeah, I mean, since the big AI boom a few years ago, I just see both like companies and also just regular consumers advocating for things that are both real and tangible. And I think that working in fraud positions me to distinguish, kind of what's real from what's not real.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And as you say, with the AI boom and looking to the future, that's things where I'm in college. It's something I'm really monitoring, trying to figure out,
Mhm.
what direction I need to go after college. So it's fascinating, but also a little scary to navigate. So, but yeah, that's really interesting. And kind of going off that, into some of the other tools and skills that you've used along the way. I know that you've used causal inference to measure, the impact of restaurant technologies on speed or accuracy or things along those lines. So I was just curious, how do you think about applying this kind of economics framework along with that statistical rigor in business settings where sometimes people just want a quick answer or a quick data point?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's definitely something that I come across a lot is yeah, just number one, like the urgency to move quickly, but like I think one of the hardest parts of that is typically people also want the statistical work to tell them what they already wanted to hear. And so that's definitely not always the case when you're looking at this data like out in the world. And so, I would say that luckily the companies that I worked at most recently we do have large amounts of data where we can get a fairly strong assessment of impact fairly quickly. Where, if I was working for somewhere that was more of like a small business, that's where you would run into lots of different sorts of problems where it would be harder to give sort of a definitive, I guess, result in terms of impact versus, yeah, somewhere where like the places that I worked recently where we might have millions of transactions in a day. But yeah, I mean, I think about it in terms of like if you're actually looking to see if you're driving change with the work that you're doing or not, you need to have like some sort of statistical rigor to be able to determine that. Sometimes I feel like depending on the problem that you're looking at, no change might be a good story. Like, hey, we made all these improvements without like negatively impacting customer experience. So I feel like it's better to be methodical about your evaluation approaches rather than to boast about an impact that may truly not actually be there.
Right. That's a very important distinction. I'm glad you brought that up. That's very interesting. And something else, yeah, I know that you do and you've done throughout your career and throughout your learning journey within data is you've taught different courses. You've gotten involved in ways to teach things surrounding data science, statistics, and SQL. I know you've done some panels, coached people. So I was just curious, what drives the teaching side for you, and how has teaching these things and explaining these things shaped the way you view data and think about data?
Yeah, so my mom actually was a middle school teacher, and several people in my family lineage have been teachers as well. And so I like to think that maybe I have some sort of special qualities in me that kind of gravitate me towards that work. But, I would say that I really love breaking down a problem for someone else and just helping them to understand their work, like what's working, like what might not be working for them. And I feel like explaining data concepts specifically, whether it's like to students or just peers, even non-data people that I might work with, that like really forces me to think deeply and to truly understand the material that I'm teaching at a foundational level. Just on top of that, I feel like understanding it in my own head is one thing, but like being able to communicate and convey that in a way that makes sense to other people, that's a separate skill set to have as well. So, I've always really enjoyed that because I feel like receiving questions from others that can really twist my brain and sometimes even reaffirm or challenge knowledge that I have with a different point of view. And yeah, I would say even like answering some of these questions from you, it's definitely forced me to think about, my own role and my career aspirations again.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, and I'm glad this has helped you even just a little bit. Kind of thinking about those things, and I agree with that sentiment, and that kind of that the adage that the best way to learn something is to teach it, to know that you truly know it. So my mom is also she's an elementary school teacher, so I have seen that. I have that kind of same love for teaching, and I'm interested to see how I can kind of apply that going forward. So it's really cool to see from your standpoint. And back to that teaching, I know that something that you've done is release different LinkedIn courses. So I know that one you've done recently is all about kind of Hugging Face AI models, evaluating them, just kind of all about that. So I was just curious if you could just kind of tell me just a little bit more about this, why you chose to teach that course, and why you think that specifically matters in today's, growing, changing, evolving environment.
Yeah, so I really wanted to teach that course, number one, just because I feel like, yeah, as part of the results of the big AI boom that we're in right now, I feel like pre-trained AI models, like they've been around for quite some time, but now they've become a lot more popular to be implemented, especially at organizations that are maybe just starting out in their AI journeys, or, kind of earlier I mentioned like organizations that don't have like as much data to work with. Using those pre-trained models can be like a great way to spin up something quickly and kind of learn from other sources of data like beyond your own. So yeah, I feel like I've seen them growing, but and that's a good thing. Like they do bring a lot of benefits in terms of speed, agility, and expertise. But yeah, it also comes with a caveat that you can't just like implement anything and hope it runs. Or like, yeah, it might be running, but it might give you some pretty poor outcomes in the end. So that's kind of where I release this course with like, yes, these pre-trained models like do have a lot of benefits. This is how you can use them, get quick feedback and information, but also with the caveats of like you still need to be critical of the AI that you are deploying. And I feel like kind of that being critical phase is what a lot of people, especially people that are maybe newer to the field and very excited and want to get something out quickly, it's a part that's glossed over. But definitely, if you don't do your due diligence in the beginning, that's where it can come back to bite you. So yeah, I wrote that course kind of just yeah, showing people that while these are great tools to use, like still be critical of what you're doing and ensure that like you're getting the outcomes that you're truly looking for.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I agree with that idea of kind of like AI governance and making sure things are governed in a way that, keep things safe and keep things accurate. Because I think especially for me, it has been really exciting to, as you said, get excited, jump into these different AI models. But it has been very instrumental to me to kind of take that step back and think about what I'm doing, thinking about the decisions being made. And I think that's going to be very important going forward, like you said. So now I just wanted to get into some just more general advice. So I know you had a successful career thus far, and you've probably worked with early career professionals. You've been an early career professional yourself. So I was just curious, what do you think students and early career professionals and people most commonly get wrong in their career breaking into data science?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great question, especially now with, so much more people having an interest in this field than ever before. I feel like my biggest misconception that people would still have today is that you're going to get this great data scientist job right away. So this is a topic that I really struggle with for a long time especially when I was first coming out of grad school. I really like wanted that data scientist title right away. Like I felt like I had been working towards it like for a few years, like ever since that internship that I mentioned earlier. And just on paper, I was like, okay, like I have the skills to get in, like I have the education, but I mean, this was several years ago, but much like even the economy today, opportunities that were truly entry level are sparse to like non-existent, I would say. Um, and so, a core reason for that is just being that this job, it does take a lot of specialization and skills. And like the breadth of skills that are needed just aren't really something that can be acquired by education alone. And so, sure, there are those people out there that they land a prestigious data science role like right out the gate. Maybe they're working for one of the big companies too, but for me, I had to take kind of those less glamorous, but still data related and industry related jobs to get me that experience to land where I wanted to go. And so, just one kind of lesson that it took me a while to learn is, ultimately companies aren't just looking for the skill on your resume, they're looking for the application of the skills that you got from that degree. And so that application piece, like that's just something that is going to take time to apply those skills and to have those build up over your career.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. And it is something that I need to uh, be honest with myself about, thinking about, the actual
Mhm.
career progression and thinking about, that career paths are rarely linear, a lot of pivots and things along the way. So I really appreciate that advice and thank you so much for that. And, not to, belabor that advice point, but I did kind of, as we wrap up, want to get into one more question. And that was just if you're in my shoes, 19 years old, studying economics and data science in today's AI booming world, what advice would you give in trying to build, a durable career in this landscape that is ever evolving?
Yeah. I feel like one strategy that has worked for me pretty well so far is to always play the long game. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned with this career path constantly changing, I feel like it's harder than it maybe has been in the past to play that long game. But for me, I always stay with the mindset of thinking 5 years ahead, but also being open to change along the way. Like, don't be so strict within the 5 year plan that if one little thing goes wrong, you feel like it's all going wrong. But give yourself multiple viable options for career paths. And so one way that I go about doing that is just keep a tab on job descriptions from roles that you like. Kind of, save them off, look at what skill sets they're looking for. And also to keep a tab on what might be new in the data science industry too. And so, kind of once you know what you like, you can work towards acquiring those skills and maybe even like those connections for people in the field that are currently doing that work that you could see yourself doing someday. And yeah, I would say overall, and this is something that I feel like I did when I was in some of I call them less glamorous. They were still great roles, but like they weren't exactly where I wanted to be. Like the less glamorous roles, like you can use those positions and experiences to build out a career with projects related to your areas of interest. And so that way, once you do see another job that you like, you can connect those experiences to those jobs in the future when the time comes.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really great advice, and I'm really excited to kind of apply and look back on this recording and write down some notes and continue thinking about the things you said to me today. And once again, thank you again for taking your time out of the day, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for your questions too. They're very thoughtful and yeah, it definitely like got my gears turning. And I feel like today, it's not been all that long ago since like I was kind of in the student mindset, but I also acknowledge that things have changed very rapidly since then too. So yeah, definitely like I feel like what you're doing now is a great way for you to kind of explore career paths and just and make connections, talk to other people. But yeah, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness from you today and for having me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words.